Well, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Philip Endersby and I'm going to be your MC for today. First of all, we'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation and also pay our respects to elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all Indigenous Australians present today. And in addition, I'd also like to pay our respects to Rotarians, past Rotarians and present Rotarians for all the good work that they do. Thank you. Thanks now will be given by Barbara Urondis. Please welcome her and she'll do the loyal toast, which is going to be presented by President Catherine. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Rotary International designates May as Youth Service Month. So a period focused on recognising, promoting and celebrating the contributions of young people through Rotary's youth programs. So this month highlights Rotary's commitment to developing the next generation of leaders through various initiatives. Rotary clubs around the world engage in activities, projects and programs to support youth and showcase their positive impact. And welfare of the young are involved in a list of those programs. So to focus on youth, Rotary recognises the importance of youth in creating positive change and invests in their development through various programs. May is a time to celebrate the efforts and leadership of young people involved in these. So Rotary International has several youth programs, including the Interact, which is for high school students, Rotaract for young adults, and the Rotary Youth Exchange, which all focus on service, leadership and international understanding. Reflection on youth service is a process where individuals, often youth workers or participants, thoroughly analyse their experience to gain insight, improve practice and foster personal and professional growth. I hope that's not me. It involves looking back, thinking about what happened and applying the understanding to future actions. This process can be done individually, with supervisors, peers or within community of practice. Reflection in youth service is a crucial element for continuous improvement and personal development. It allows individuals to enhance their professional practice, foster learning and growth, improve job satisfaction and confidence, promote equality, inclusion and diversity, and support youth development. In essence, reflection is a powerful tool that can be used to enhance the quality of youth service, promote the development of youth workers, and ultimately improve the lives of young people. So today, let's celebrate our youth and nurture our leaders of tomorrow.
Thank you, Barbara. Please charge your glasses. A toast to Australia and Rotary International. Please be seated and we'll now take a break while lunch is served and be back at around about 1:10. Thank you to those online who have had you broken into the room. Members, visitors and guests, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to our 43rd meeting of the Rotary year and our 5080th for our 104-year history. It's great that you're all here today and hello to all of you online. Our guest speaker today is Major Brendan Nottle, Commanding Officer, Salvation Army Melbourne, speaking about the Melbourne Way. Brendan will be more formally introduced by our Chair of the Day, Reg Smith, later in the program. We also have as our guest today, Mimmi Watts. Mimmi will be inducted into the club very shortly and is accompanied by her daughter, Tracy Kate. If you please join me in welcoming Brendan, Mimmi and Tracy Kate. Thank you. Have a seat. We also have a number of visiting Rotarians, visitors and guests of members. I invite you to stand when I call your name and then remain standing while we welcome you to the club. So we have Herman Garcia from a Rotary Club in Mexico. Welcome, Herman. We have Elizabeth Droz from Footscray Rotary Club, President-elect, soon to be President. Jennifer Foster from Changemakers. Flora Maidment from Central Melbourne. Karen Gornall and Mike Gornall, Dessa Devon Fu, Marcus Pearl, and May Yin. Welcome, everyone. Please have a seat. Thank you very much. Mimmi, would you please come forward for induction into membership of our club? And Will, there you are. Will introduce Mimmi to the club, and then I'll conduct the induction and give Mimmi a chance to respond. So Will, over to you.
President Catherine, it gives me much pleasure to introduce for membership of the club Professor Mimmi Watts, who holds the position of public health expert in academia and will have the classification of public health, education and policy development. She will be a member of Central One Group. Her mentor in the club will be Barbara Urandis and will be known in the club as Mimmi. I have known Professor Watts for many years through our respective community engagements, international collaborations and cross-sector leadership in business and peace building. She is a highly experienced public health expert and academic with a strong focus on curriculum development, health policy, migrant health and leadership. She is deeply passionate about human development, inclusion, early motherhood, chronic disease prevention, and healthier future for communities worldwide. Professor Watts served as a Commissioner, Victorian Multicultural Commission, and a former Federal Senate candidate. She is the chair of the Australian Chapter African Science Research Innovation Council, African Union Commission, among other governance and senior leadership roles. She serves on the Policy Committee, World Federation of Public Health Associations. So please make her welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, William. Not yet. All good. Here we go. Mimmi Watts. We welcome you as a member of the Rotary Club of Melbourne. Today you enter an organisation of 1.1 million members around the world in 36,000 clubs in 221 countries, embracing the internationality of Rotary. We believe that you have the personal and professional qualities that will ensure the principles of Rotary will be safe in your keeping. The Rotary badge that you receive in a moment, and I hope you will wear with pride, indicates your commitment to the object of Rotary, which we all aspire, to be an ambassador into our community and the ideal of service above self. We ask that you convey Rotary's aims to all that you do and all that you know. We look forward to pursuing with you the great work of Rotary. So in this expectation, I offer you the right-hander fellowship and ask the members to rise and join me in welcoming you to membership of our club.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Willie, for the invitation, but also for welcoming me. Thank you, Tracy Kate, my beautiful daughter, and everybody in the room who is here to welcome me. I've been asked several times, why do you want to join Rotary? I said the timing was right. And over the years, people have invited me, but I think the way Will spoke to me about it, but also me having the various visits here made me feel at home. Further, the vision and the work that Rotary does around the world and in our communities resonated with me at so many levels. I am very passionate about inclusion, human development, but also I believe that education and community service lift everyone. And I'm hoping that with my contribution, with your support, I am going to make a good Rotarian. So thank you very much.
So I'll see you after. We'll take some photos.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Willie. I really appreciate it.
We're very excited to have you as a member of our club, Mimmi. Now I have made a terrible omission. I have missed flagging that we have another visiting Rotarian, Shinji from the Osaka Club. Shinji, you've been with us so many times now. I'm counting you as a member of here. So please welcome Shinji. It's wonderful you're here with us today again. So just a few notices. Very importantly, the World Environment Day event, 11th of June. Tickets are selling fast, so get in and make sure that you've got your bookings online, available through the Rotary Club of Melbourne website. Just a couple of other notices, the directory reminder. So if you've got any adjustments to be made to your information in the directory, either the hard copy or online, please get hold of Joe by the end of this week, because we will be going to print very soon. And a reminder, the annual appeal, emails went out. Your donations are tax deductible and directly fund Rotary Club of Melbourne's projects. And I'll now hand over to our chair of the day, past President Reg Smith, to take the podium. Thank you, Reg.
Thanks very much, President Catherine. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today, because a person who is a spiritual friend of this club and has been for a long time is going to be addressing us, and that's Brendan Nottle. I showed him a 200-word introduction. He said, "Don't do that. Just introduce me as Brendan from the Salvos." And but what I really wanted to say in introducing him is that he is the epitome above service, above self. I mean, here's a guy who's spent the last 25 years dedicated to one of the most severe problems that we face in this community, and that's homelessness. So it's my privilege and pleasure to call on you to welcome Brendan to the podium, and Brendan will look forward to talking. Now, he has agreed to take questions afterwards, so store them up and we'll try and get to you. Thank you, everyone.
Very well. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Thanks so much for the invitation to be here today. I walked into this room and I thought, this is a really familiar space. So it's been sort of racking my mind. I've been thinking, why have I been in this space before? The last time I was here was 10 years ago to address this club. So hopefully none of you were at that address 10 years ago, because I'm probably going to use the same material again. So apologies for that. I just want to say a huge heartfelt thank you to each of you for being members of Rotary. Rotary do a phenomenal work right around the world, and I appreciate Rotary, but I really genuinely appreciate each of you and the contributions that you make to this community, but communities worldwide. And on a personal note, I've got a very warm affinity with Rotary, because Rotary had a profound impact on the life of our eldest daughter, Ash. So she was part of Rotaract, and then ended up becoming a leader in Rotaract, and it shaped her path for her career. So thank you so much for your contribution into her life. I want to take you on a journey this morning. So we're just going to wander down 35 floors to the Yarra River. And we're going to head not just down the Yarra River to Queensbridge Street, but we're actually going to head back to 1835. And it was at that location, the Queensbridge turning basin, where a ship arrived called the Enterprise. And on board was Batman. There was another ship that also arrived. I'm incorrect. It was the Enterprise that had the Faulkners on it, and it was the Rebecca that had John Batman on it. And it also, at that location, also from Launceston, was Henry Reid. And we're told that Batman alighted from the ship and wandered around, and he said, "This is a place for a village." And Batman got a little excited and said, "I declare this village to be known as Batmania." It's true. Unfortunately, that name didn't stick. So we ended up being known as Melbourne, not Batmania. But it was really interesting because Batman was driven by purely commercial interests. So he saw a great opportunity for making an enormous amount of money. But with him was this man, Henry Reid. And interestingly, Reid was driven by a whole different set of values. So Reid had actually spent some time with the local Wurundjeri people. And the history books tell us when it came time for Reed to return to Launceston, some Aboriginal people actually wept at his departure because they became so connected. And I think one of the reasons why this connection happened was because of shared values. So Reed was driven by three core values. One was no one left behind. The other was bring the outsider into the middle of the community and wrap support around them and do everything you can to help get them back on their feet. And the third was to challenge and change systems and structures that produce victims. Interestingly, as I speak to local Wurundjeri elders today, they say that still today, the Wurundjeri people uphold the value of no one left behind. So that's where I just wonder if there was that mutual connection with Reed around his values. So Reed turns to Batman and he says, I'll help you establish this new city. I will loan you ships, I will loan you farming equipment from Launceston, I will loan you £3,000. Whatever you need, I want to help you establish this new city. Fast forward to 1865, and Henry Reed and his wife Maria have sold all of their very large land holdings down in Launceston and travelled to the east end of London. And they met with some friends, William and Catherine Booth, and they had afternoon tea with them on a Saturday. The Booths were in the middle of starting the Salvation Army. And the Reeds said to the Booths, we will cut you a big cheque to support this work that you're doing. But rather than you working and also trying to start the Salvation Army, we will pay your weekly stipend for the rest of your lives. So you can just concentrate on building this new organisation called the Salvation Army. Fast forward a little bit forward, quite a number of decades, and the Reed's grandson, Hudson Fysh, ends up becoming one of the founders of Qantas here in Australia. Driven by what value? Perhaps no one left behind. Their granddaughter-in-law, Sunday Reed, was the founder of the Heidi Art Museum. She was married to John Reed, or Jim Reed, who was a grandson of Henry Reed and his wife Maria. Back here in Melbourne in 1869, a delegation of people met with a medical doctor by the name of Dr. John Singleton. And I'm not going to go through every year up until 2025, so we won't be here for 3 days. I'll fast forward. But in 1869, there was this delegation that said to the medical doctor, Dr. John Singleton, we've got a significant problem here in Melbourne at the moment where people are dying from preventable disease. And there are children that are dying as well. We need to do something. So John Singleton established the very first free medical clinic in the world right here in Wellington Street, Collingwood. It was a little bit later that the Singletons were actually outside the old Melbourne jail and they were greeting prisoners as they left. They were often discharged once they'd finished their sentence in the evening. And the Singletons would say, do you have anywhere to stay tonight? If not, come back and stay with us. And around that time in 1883, the Salvation Army sent a couple, James and Alice Barker, to come and establish the work of the Salvation Army here in Melbourne. And the Barkers connected with the Singletons. And so they too stood outside the old Melbourne jail and greeted people as they were being discharged and said, come and stay with us if you have nowhere to stay. And so the Singletons actually purchased 37 Argyle Street, Carlton, and said to the Barkers, but also the Salvation Army, you can establish the first halfway house for prisoners anywhere in the world in this house in Carlton. That house, that first halfway house for prisoners, became the first expression of Salvation Army social work in the world. It happened here in Melbourne. There are a whole lot of individuals, there are a whole lot of organisations and church groups that gathered around those three values of Henry Reed. He informed the work of Singleton, the Barkers, and a whole lot of other people, where it was ensuring that no one was left behind, bringing the outsider into the centre of the community and wrapping support around them, and challenging and changing systems and structures that produced victims. Melbourne did that role so well that in the 1890s, people travelled from around the world to come and look at what they regarded as the world's first social experiment. It was here in Melbourne where people were cared for in their vulnerability so well that word spread around the world. So these values of compassion, of care for the most vulnerable, were deeply entrenched right here by the Reeds, but also by the local Wurundjeri people before the Reeds even arrived. they're the sort of values that shape and inform the work we do here in Burke Street, at 69 Burke Street. So the Salvation Army in 1894 purchased the building that's there now. And the Salvation Army's occupied that building for 130 years. And we too are driven by those same values that Reid and the local Wurundjeri people discussed. And we're very passionate about making sure that no one's left behind. So we turned a room at Burke Street into a cafe. So rather than having people come in for a soup kitchen where they line up and it's a pretty undignified environment, we say to people, come sit down, let's treat you well. Let's have corporate groups come in and serve the tables and actually treat you like a guest. And so in that space, we see 600 people a day for breakfast, lunch and dinner. And we address the issue of food insecurity, which is a growing issue for so many Melburnians at the moment. And the interesting thing and challenging thing for us is we're seeing new faces most days of the week. So we're seeing young mums come in with their children, and they've often got a partner who's out working, trying to make ends meet, but they simply can't. So rents are going up or mortgages are going up, utility costs are going up, food costs are going up, and they simply can't make ends meet. And so they come to places like ours for support. One of the other things that we see in the cafe is not only food insecurity, but we also see the issue of social poverty. So there's this increasing number of people that are lonely and isolated. And so we use it as an opportunity, not just to do things for people where we provide them with a meal, but to actually sit down with them and do life with them and to actually engage. And I love it because it's an opportunity for me with a captive audience to talk about my love for Collingwood Football Club. So I bash their ears about how great Collingwood is, and they can't go anywhere because they want to have the meal. But those simple discussions about just life that often people miss out on are so vitally important. The other thing that we've found with the group of people that attend the cafe each day is that they're often locked out of access to the fundamentals of life. So a lot of the people that we see won't address basic health conditions because they can't afford to go to a GP. So they'll ignore their health conditions. We had a man just recently had severe headaches, refused to talk to anyone about it. He was just hoping it would disappear. It was an aneurysm that burst. Miraculously, the team at the Alfred were able to help him recover. But we see that sort of thing happen on a fairly regular basis where people have health conditions that they don't get treated. And so we've reached out to CoHealth, the primary healthcare service, and on the 1st of May this year, they started operating from our building. So there's a healthcare service there, GPs there each day, nurses there each day, and each GP is an addiction specialist. So they're able to deal with a whole range of issues that walk through our door. The Alfred Hospital have set up a mental health clinic in our building as well. So they'll come into the cafe and they'll provide a meal for someone, and then they'll start to have conversation with people, and fairly quickly it will become obvious if people need some support from their mental health team. So they're able to take them somewhere quiet and private and do the work that needs to be done. One of the really interesting things that's happened for us is 3 years ago, the Minister for Government Services at the time offered us a full-time Services Australia worker. And it was part of a pilot where Nick Carbines was working with us, and there were 3 other Services Australia workers based in 3 other locations around the nation. There's now 29 of these locations around the country. And Nick is in the cafe as a Services Australia worker, just talking to people, providing a meal. And then people start to interact with him around any questions they might have around income support, child support or Medicare. A lot of the people that we see, and this is often an issue that goes unmentioned in our community, is adult illiteracy, particularly within this group, is very high. And so when people are required to fill in forms at Centrelink offices, they often become embarrassed, they become ashamed, or they become agitated, and they often get asked to leave. And if they're not receiving income support, then they can often resort to crime to survive. So having somebody like Nick Carbines from Services Australia there every day has been a game changer for so many people. There are a number of people that come into our service who are on the wrong benefit. So they're actually on Job Seeker, where they're required to attend 10 job interviews a fortnight to continue to receive their income support. The problem is a lot of those people are dealing with really complex mental health issues, and they often can't remember where they're meant to be at a certain time. So they don't turn up to their appointments for job interviews, or they do turn up and the interview doesn't go so well and their income support gets cut off. And so Nick has done some excellent work around getting people on the right benefit. So if people are eligible for disability support rather than job seeker, he's done the work to get them on the right benefit. And that's been really a significant game changer for so many people. One of the issues that we see walk through our door every day is diabetes, and it's often undiagnosed and untreated. So Diabetes Australia has supplied us with an amazing diabetes educator. So she's there 1 or 2 days a week, testing people's bloods and then doing some education around diabetes. And it's been amazing to see the work that Julie's done. Here in Australia are based in our cafe as well. And it's incredible to see the number of people that come in that have hearing loss, but they just see that as just a normal part of life and nothing's been done to address it. And so the Hearing Australia team supply hearing aids for free. And if people need their hearing aids maintained or batteries checked, they do all of that work as well. And one who has been dealing with severe deafness for, it's been a number of years now. He's a completely different person because of the work of Hearing Australia. And he was coming into our cafe every day. We hardly see one now because he's gone to university and he's studying. Transformative because he's able to hear. We also have a lawyer who comes in on a Monday night, and Marco said to me about 6 months ago, Brendan, in the cafe tonight, there are 10 people that are absolutely terrified. And so I'm there thinking, oh my goodness, there's 10 people that have been stood over by someone, you know, what, this is terrible. And he said to me, no. The issue is there are 10 people here tonight that have warrants issued for their arrest, but it's all over very minor offending and it's often related to their circumstances. So he pointed out a number of people that were homeless, unable to access housing, went on a train, fell asleep on the train with their feet on the seats, got a fine. There were people that didn't have the right Mikey card, didn't have their concession card with them, got a fine. The fine went unpaid. An appearance in court was required. They failed to appear, so a warrant was issued for their arrest. So Marco said, I'm not sure what we can do. So this particular night, we had a police superintendent volunteering in our cafe. So he was out the back washing the dishes. And Marco went and had a conversation with Craig. And they decided that every fortnight on a Monday night, a police sergeant from Melbourne East Police Station would attend our cafe, and Marco would present people to the police sergeant that had had warrants issued for their arrest for minor offending. And so if it was just minor offending, the warrant was executed then and there, so the issue was resolved. If it was serious offending, that was a whole different ball game, which we agreed to and which Marco agreed to as well. So the person would be arrested and dealt with at the police station. But if it was minor offending, then it was dealt with then and there. And that night, there were two men, I still remember it, they were sitting at table 13, it was Tuesday night. They were sitting at table 13 and I wandered over because one of the men was crying and I sat down, I said, is everything okay? And he said, I've been on the run for 3 years over not having a Mikey card. And he said, I haven't been able to get help from anywhere because you need my name. And I was worried that my name would be passed on to the police and I'd be arrested and locked up. And it was over very, very minor offending. And he said, tonight it's been resolved. And he said, I just feel like this enormous load has been lifted. So there's some really simple things that we can work on together to actually bring about significant transformation for that really vulnerable group of people and help them get on with their lives. And I think that's one of the things I really value about being involved with the Salvation Army, particularly around at Burke Street. And I just want to finish with this story. It was a number of years ago where there was a young mum came into the cafe at lunchtime and she had a little 6-year-old daughter with her. And the mum was incredibly distressed. And she said that she'd escaped violence at home, which was directed towards her. And she didn't know where to go. So a friend said, if you just go to a local rooming house You don't need a bond, you don't need rental references, just turn up, pay your weekly rent, everything will be fine. So the mum, the 6-year-old, were staying in this place for a couple of months. And then the mum found out that the man in the room next door had been released on serious assault charges, been released from prison on serious assault charges. And so this mum that was trying to keep a little girl safe felt that she'd put her little girl in the harm's way. And so we did the ring around and we simply couldn't find anywhere to put this mum and her little girl that would be safe. And so I remember going to Collingwood Football Club and met with Eddie McGuire when he was president, and a couple of other people there, David Emerson, who was setting up the community programs. And I just said, we need help. This is the issue. And Eddie was engaged, and Eddie said, I think we can help. How many houses do you need? And I had a rush of blood, and I said, I reckon 100 would fix it. So Eddie told me where to go very quickly and very impolitely. But we ended up with 2 houses, and now we've got 50 houses that are all rented in Collingwood's name, and they underwrite the rent. So people pay rent, but if something goes wrong, Collingwood carry the risk around the payment of those rents. And we've got a team that go in and actually help address the drivers for people's homelessness, and then help with them work on a pathway out of homelessness into long-term housing. It's a remarkable program, and we're only able to do it because of the support of the Collingwood Football Club. So if there's any Carlton supporters here today, I've got membership papers for them. It's a really quite a remarkable program, and Collingwood's now wanting to invest more significantly in the cafe here at Burke Street, so that we've got more resources, so that we're enabled to do more of the work that's so important for that vulnerable group of people that often just keep falling through the gaps. Thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate it. It's hard to listen to somebody when you've had a beautiful lunch and it's in the afternoon, but thanks for coming along and thanks for listening this afternoon.
Well, if you're not inspired after that address, I'm not quite sure what we can do. What I'd like to now do is invite questions. Brendan is perfectly happy to answer questions, and if there are any, we have a microphone here. And I think John Peverty might be willing to bowl the first one.
Thanks for chatting. Thanks for having us. G'day, John.
I was just really interested. I caught up in a very small comment you made around Mikey, and my wife was working at a shopping centre, which isn't on a major transport route. There are trams and so on, but they get people from the airport come to it, and people want Mikey. You know, I travel in public transport. I see people doing checks and so on. That in the situation of homeless people, I mean, how hard is it to access Mikeys? Are you able to get Mikeys that you can give people and so on? Such a practical thing to get around the city.
Yeah.
We've got the worst ticketing system in the world, but trying to access it for people who don't know how to do it will be quite impossible. And they'll be the ones who get caught.
Yeah, absolutely. And what happens, John, is the people that we work with get caught and they're unable to pay the fine, and they block up the system. They block up the court system. So there's issues appear all over the system as a result. Services such as ours are provided with 7-day passes, but there's a limited number of those. And I think that process is pretty bureaucratic. And I think if there was a way to actually provide a certain cohort of people with free transport, then I think that would take the pressure off. But I think we're a long way off that. Yeah.
Another question?
Yeah, John.
Brendan, as I've driven around Melbourne, I see lots of very old pubs on the corners usually. They used to be hotels and they're now reduced to a dining room and a bar.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever considered finding out if the upper floors of these buildings can be used for homeless people? And as well as that, there are upper floors of commercial areas in the suburbs, which so often look just empty, could be used for homeless people. Has it ever been considered?
Yeah, I've got to declare my affinity to this Rotary Club. It's Rotary Club of Melbourne that actually funded my first ever job, which was as a youth worker at Crossroads Youth Projects, long time ago, 1984. 1985. So this Rotary Club took a risk and invested significant dollars. And I mention that because Crossroads Youth Projects, it was the largest homeless youth program in Australia at the time, worked with the Australian Hotels Association to access hotel rooms that were unoccupied. So there was a little bit of that work done, but over the years, I think there's been issues with people residing in some of those hotel rooms. So I think a lot of publicans have just made a decision to close those rooms. But I think that creative thinking is so critically important now. One of the things that we're working on with the Magpie Nest housing program is how do we access land? So we've been talking to the Land Coordinator General here in Victoria about how do we access land. So we don't want to own the land. We effectively just want to borrow the land. And we've been having some conversations with Jerry Ryan from JCO around can we access relocatables that perhaps have been used at caravan parks and move those to some of that land. We've been having a talk to the Reese Foundation about whether they might help us with covering the costs of accessing the services. So we effectively set up like micro communities. So there might be 8 to 12 of these relocatables with a multi-purpose space in the middle. And we might have, 2 young people that might be studying social work or psychology or something. They actually live in that micro community, not to run it, but simply to be a positive influence and to be eyes and ears and to run activities in the evenings in the multi-purpose space and then to feed information back to our team. So we're working on that model at the moment. It's a bit different, but I think that's where we've got to go in the middle of, some people call it a housing crisis. I'd probably go further and call it a housing disaster for so many people now. And I think the only way through this, we often sit back and demand that state and federal governments do more. And I think we need to continue to do that. But I think as community organisations, we have a responsibility to be thinking creatively about the way through. So sorry about the long answer, but you've pushed a button for me. And I think you're absolutely right. We've got to be thinking about other ways forward with housing opportunities. Yeah.
My name's Will Abdo. I'm just a question regarding the homeless people we see on our streets here in the city of Melbourne. What are we doing to help those people? Because I think we really do have the resources to help people not sleeping in the city, and also increasingly happening too much. So how can we help these people?
Yeah, that's a great question, Will. Back in 2019, the City of Melbourne conducted a street count. So they had teams go out and actually count the number of people that were sleeping rough. So the figure came in at 242 in June 2019. So they're people within the City of Melbourne who could be identified, who could be found. So 242, fast forward into COVID and the number dropped to 60. And then coming out of COVID, just recently, the number was 131. So the numbers that, when you compare the 2019 figure to this figure, the numbers are down. And I think that's because the government at the time did some good work with agencies around getting people into hotel accommodation and then worked with those people to get them into long-term housing. I think part of the issue was organisations, and we were part of this, did the hard work around getting people into the long-term housing, but we did not do the hard work around addressing people's drivers for their homelessness. So you can put somebody into a house, but if you're not dealing with the trauma that may have led them into that situation or the mental health issue or whatever it might be, they're just going to cycle straight back onto the streets. And then they're going to be a lot more sceptical about another housing offer that might be provided to them because they're going to say, I've tried it, it failed. So they become more and more entrenched. I think coming out of COVID, what we've seen is, as I mentioned, the number not as high as it was, but the behaviours are much more obvious now. So that the antisocial behaviour is much more obvious. So we're seeing really complex mental health issues prevalent all around the city. And the other thing that we're seeing is those issues are spreading beyond the city. So they're in suburbs where rough sleeping hasn't previously been seen. And the other issue that we're seeing at the moment is particularly families, so mums with kids are living in vans. So you go to football grounds and there's the car parks where you'll see vans parked there. One of our daughters lives in Northcote. There's unlimited parking in that area. There's 10 vans parked there where people are living in the vans. And in some cases, we're seeing people go to work during the day, can't afford housing, and they come back and live in their van in the evening. So sorry, I'll wrap. Sorry, I'll wrap up. You're pushing my buttons here. Yeah, I'm almost there. I'm just finished. Almost there. So basically, what we need to do is continue to provide, I think, services like the wraparound services that we've got at Burke Street, but we need more of those. But I also think that we need like a multidisciplinary approach where we go out to where people are sleeping rough, and we're not only providing food, but an offer of housing, an offer of mental health support, of health support. So that whole multidisciplinary approach is so critical, which we're not doing at the moment. Yeah, sorry for the long answer. Yeah.
How we going, Chair? I have to shout, Barbara.
I'll be quick. Thank
Sorry,
you
Barbara.
very much. My earliest memory of your organisation was as a child going to Sunday school with my neighbour. I remember nothing of the religious instruction, but just remember having fun and singing songs. So
Yeah, great.
but I was very interested in your story and how the Salvation Army started. But it makes it feel like you're just here in Melbourne, but you're a worldwide organisation.
Yeah.
So how far is your spread?
It's in most countries around the world. So it is an international organisation. So it started in London in 1865. Sorry if I just focused on Melbourne, but that's my area. That's what I'm interested in. But it's global. And there's some countries where it's not present, but I think there's some work being done at the moment to get into those countries. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Rich.
Brendan, I think this will be one of the more memorable presentations for this year. Thank you. In our traditional way, you may be forgiven for thinking that this is a bottle of wine, but it's actually a pair of unique socks.
Unique socks.
Made here in Melbourne by Philip Endersby, 200% Australian made, using all the metrics that are allowed to be used, and rapidly becoming a collector's item. Not sure what happened to my sound there, but Brendan's brilliant, and we look forward to.
Very nice. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay. I think I can project my voice. Just not sure what went wrong with that connection, but I'd just firstly like to thank all of our visitors, members and guests. We're right there, Joe. Okay, I'd like to thank all of our visitors, members and guests, and particularly would like to thank our MC, Philip Endersby, and of course, Barbara, for your marvellous reflection. Now, this is normally a reminder, but unfortunately our speaker for next week hasn't been able to make it. So rather than mess around trying to find a make-up speaker this time, we're going to take a break, and but with heavy focus on the big event following, and that's the World Environment Day event on the 11th of June. That's one to be there or be square. Honest to goodness, it's going to be an absolute blockbuster. So looking forward to seeing you there.